further updates coming out of that region. And as per Turkey's interior minister, Islamic State terrorists have clashed with police in northwest Turkey, leaving 3 police officers and 6 terrorists dead. At least 8 other police officers and a night guard have been seen reportedly wounded in the clashes. And the shooting occurred in the El Mali district of Yalova province, south of Istanbul, and as police confirmed, as they stormed a house where the terrorists were hiding. Reports suggest that special forces from neighbouring Bursa province were dispatched to reinforce the operation. Interior Minister Ali Yerkalivaya said the operation in Yalova was one out of more than 100 simultaneous raids carried out against IS suspects in 15 provinces across the country. Let's in fact listen in to what the Interior Minister has said on the issue.
Bu hain saldırı sonucunda maalesef 3 kahraman polisimiz şehit olmuştur. Saldırıda 8 polisimiz ve 1 bekçimiz de yaralanmıştır. Teröristlerin bulunduğu evde kadınlar ve çocukların olması nedeniyle operasyon büyük bir hassasiyetle yürütülmüştür. Adreste bulunan 5 kadın ve 6 çocuk sağ olarak tahliye edilmiştir. Çıkan çatışmada 6 terörist ölü olarak ele geçirilmiştir.
Meanwhile, the Yalova Chief Public Prosecutor's Office has launched an investigation into the attack, and as per reports, 5 people have been taken into custody as part of a probe. As the confrontation spread into the streets, 5 schools in the area have been closed for the day, while authorities also cut off natural gas and electricity supplies. As a precaution, the civilians and vehicles have also been barred from entering the neighbourhood. Mohammed Osman joins us once again. Mohammed, how significant is this clash in Yalova? Is this an isolated security incident or part of a deeper Islamic State threat inside of Turkey?
Of course, we cannot really attempt to analyze this, Thomas, without looking at the resurgence of ISIS in Syria as of late. In Syria, ISIS has increased the pace of its attacks lately, its attacks against US troops. A few weeks ago, the attacks against a Shia Alawite mosque. A few days ago, suicide bombing. It was a group linked to ISIS. So evidently there is a resurgence, and the United States has acted decisively as part of the international coalition against ISIS by carrying out airstrikes against this group. And of course, there is a spillover effect always in Syria. Last time around, when ISIS grew and became basically a quasi de facto state in parts of Syria and Iraq, the violence and the terrorism spilled over to other countries in the region, including Turkey. Turkey back then was very lenient with the jihadists. It was basically a channel through which many of the foreign fighters entered Turkey, because basically everyone was fighting the Assad regime back then. But this spectacularly backfired in Turkey back then in 2017 and 18 and 19, when massive terrorist attacks were carried out inside Turkey, causing scores of deaths and hundreds of injured. So now, with the resurgence of ISIS, it's only logical that they will also attempt to infiltrate the Turkish interior and carry out attacks. And on the other hand, Turkey is very aware of this danger. They are supporting the Syrian government and their attempts to contain and curb the influence of ISIS. And also, they are working on countering the influences of ISIS inside Turkey. And also, this has a very important dimension for Turkey, because Turkey basically is tired of the United States touting the horn previously in the past of the SDF, or Syria Democratic Forces, as the prime fighters of ISIS, which is true, by the way. However, they say that now with the SDF bracing for a potential integration into the Syrian army, the Syrian state and Turkey can take over the functions of countering ISIS terrorism and rooting out this organization.
Mohammed Osman, it is always a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much for taking the time and joining us here on NewsX World. We now move on to our next story, and at least 16 people have been killed after a deadly fire broke out at a retirement home in Indonesia. The blaze was reported late Sunday night in the city of Manado.